everybody, and welcome to 3-Minute Racquet Reviews. Today's frame is the Wilson nBlade 98. Moving on to the ground strokes, I'd give this an 8.5 out of 10. I think it's phenomenal from the ground. Good amount of power, tons of control, and just really whippy and easy to get through the air. Moving on to net play, I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10. I think it's an average response for a 98 square inch frame at the net. The tight 18x20 pattern does make it a little bit tricky to feel like the ball is really sinking into the string bed and giving you a good degree of pocketing. But that being said, there is a lot of control and a lot of feel in this string bed. Moving on to serving, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. I think the frame stock is a little bit on the lighter side, which makes it tough to really go after a flat serve or a slice serve. And then in general, I think that tight 18x20 does limit you from getting a lot of bite on your kick or slice. Moving on to power, I'd give this a 6.5 out of 10. I think it's a really underpowered 98 square inch frame. The beam is super thin, and people have to remember that this initial version, the first version of the blade, really was aimed more at the player's frame market, people that were into low powered, thin beam type frames, whereas the blade today has got a little bit thicker, a little more powerful, a little more spin friendly. Moving on to control, I give it a 9 out of 10. I mentioned it a few times, but this is one of the tightest 18x20s that I've used, and I think it just does a great job at allowing you to pinpoint targets, really go for a target the size of a tennis ball and feel confident that the ball is going to sort of follow your lead so long as your feet are set, prepared early, and you're good at tennis. Next, on to spin, I'd give this a 5.5 out of 10. The tight 18x20 doesn't really allow for a ton of spin generation. Wouldn't suggest this to somebody who really relies on spin as the core of their game. For me, it's more suited for someone who likes to hit through the court. On to stability, I'd give this a 7.5 out of 10. I think this comes down to the way that the weight is distributed in the layup. Personally, I feel like there's a lot of weight in the lower portion of the hoop. So that upper portion of the hoop, if you're hitting open stance, on the run, playing defense, it can flutter on you a little bit and provide sort of an unstable response if you're trying to return a ball that has a fair degree of weight behind it. Next, on to comfort, I'd give this like a 9.7 out of 10. I've mentioned this with nearly every Encode frame that I've reviewed. The layup in the Encode frames was just the best. I mean, so soft, but also so connected. I really think Wilson sort of peaked in terms of layup technology with Encode, and this nBlade was really the last serious racket that they released with Encode technology, so I think at this point they really had the formula down. Onto the flex profile, I'd give this a lower yoke flex. I think it flexes like an old school Prestige, a really distinct snapping sensation through contact that can be felt right above the handle. Next, on to touch and responsiveness, I'd also give this a 9.5 out of 10. That 18x20 string pattern that is on the tighter side still is just super predictable. You can really understand where the power tends to drop off and where the sweet spot sits within this pattern. Moving on to our will it lead category, I think this can work for a competitive player, sort of in an average playing skill level. You just have to be the right type of player, right? So somebody that wants to hit through the court, has flatter mechanics, enjoys the response of a tight 18x20, this one can work for you. Lastly, onto the cosmetics, I give this a 10 out of 10. I think this is maybe my second or third favorite Encode paint job. Super classy. Really like the black combined with the gold and the white inside the hoop. Thanks everybody for tuning into this racket review. We'll see you in the next one.